Hey, David here. We are live back for weekly tour of my library. Hopefully, I have a good one today. One of exciting subjects, something I spend the most of my time researching and educational, talking about engineering science. I had a larger section of civil engineering, although like God forbid, Duvid's kind of employment-wise a failure. I never found regular employment. I found like part-time work, consulting and property management. I have an eBay business. Like I might keep myself economically stable, but I never had success in the actual working engineering field, unfortunately. Hey, Superman, thanks for tuning in. Um, got it. But I mean, Duvid is basically a scientist. Like I'm Jewish. I studied in yeshiva. I like thinking about spiritual topics. I had considered becoming a rabbi, but I'm just a Jew who likes studying Judaism. Got a YouTube page sharing some of my thoughts. I studied and worked under major rabbis, but practically I'm a scientist. I'm an engineer, and certainly since COVID-19, I've directed the majority of my attentions to the study of science, mostly consciousness. Um, but probably one of the major subjects that I follow is the history of science. And I also do engineering conferences, and I have thousands. I could probably fill up like 4 bookshelves with pamphlets from engineering conferences of various mechanical machinery company overviews and various things that people who follow my channel will see the regular um, engineering conferences. That there hasn't been any lately. Um, so let me try to jump straight into the books. So I'm wrapping up kind of towards my toward the library. I have another. Next one's going to be my big one, psychology and consciousness, and that's one of my big topics that I hope the multiple truth hypothesis, and I think I have actually theoretical and some studies that I'll be able to start producing my own papers. I'm working on my own writing, but even hopefully quality scientific papers. Duvid wants to go to the Science of Consciousness conference in May in Sicily, Italy, and still hoping that will work out. And so next week will be a bigger stream. I have like more 4 bookshelves this week's 2 overfull bookshelves with quite a bit of stuff, some interesting stuff. And I stopped buying books in the last few years, so I read a lot of free material online, or God forbid, like some bootleg stuff, or like PhD thesis, academic literature that's free online. So my level of research on this topic is actually quite strong. I'm reading significant amount. I just stopped reading books, but these books were significant in the making of Duvid, and some pretty good books. So I have a few different sections to share today. I have some stuff I'll call like internet and computer books, um, general history of engineering. I have more books on the manufacturing process, some books on 3D printing, and some generic books, and a whole bunch of books on biology, geology, that I just I don't randomly, but you got grouped together on the shelves in my library because really none of these in and of itself would have made for a whole shelf, and so I just kind of lumped them together. And so let's get to it. So I'll start with the internet and computer history. So this book, I think my dad may have given me this book recently. Um, Tom Standage, The Victorian Internet, talking about the history of the telegraph, the remarkable story of the telegraph in the 19th century online pioneers, um, with including the laying of eventually the underwater cables between North America and Canada, and some of the big names and personality, like Edison, and it was a decent book. I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily recommending any books today. If I feel like a book, there'll be a few books that are really exceptional books that I will recommend. But all these just generic books, and hopefully after I finish with this, I will you'll go more in depth in with some of the books. So these are just brief covering of books that I've read on the subject. So Victorian Internet, Tom Standage, History of the Telegraph, which will be the precursor to the modern day Internet, in the laying the telegraph lines from the across the Atlantic to now. There's a significant amount of underwater wires being laid. In fact, there's new, better technology, internet fiber optics that keep on getting laid under the Atlantic. There's even God forbid, questions about if Russia had access to the Atlantic. Could they bomb the cables and shut off the internet connection between Europe and America? So important topic. Here's YouTube secrets. The ultimate guide to growing your following and making money as a video influencer by Sean Cannell and Benji Travis. Kind of a basic introductory book to becoming a YouTube influencer. What you need to know in order to grow your YouTube channel. This book I read recently, Dataclasm, Who Are We by Christian Rudder. I think Christian Rudder was part of like eCupid, and it was just interesting about the nature of analytics. My dad actually gave me this book, and I almost sold it right away, but I ended up reading it, and it was a tough read. I mean, it was like written in a way that made it hard to read, but there was certain information about the nature of computer analytics and social media, and this author specifically worked with eCupid, but the type data that we know from social media and what that indicates, like who we are. Here's another decent book, Where the Wizards Stay Up Late, The Origins of the Internet by Katie Hafner and Matthew Leon. Decent history of the internet and DARPA and relatively important stuff. One of the biggest inventions of modern times. Many of the major companies that the biggest companies that today are completely based on the internet. So quite a few books here. Also, this might be relatively more important. Jim Gertner, The Idea Factory, Bell Labs, and the Great Age of American Innovation. So I mean, Bell Labs was more than just the internet. Think IBM and computers in general arose out of Bell Labs and many of the internet technologies. So Bell Labs, I think, was R&D facility from the phone company. Eventually got affiliated with, I think, IBM and DARPA military investment. But many of the precursors to the internet and the computer in general came out of Bell Labs. Another important Intel Trinity, Michael Malone. How Robert Noyce, Gordon Moore, and Andy Grove built the world's most important company. I'm not sure if Intel's really the world's most important company. I used to trade Intel when I day traded occasionally. Didn't move that much, so it wasn't that much activity. But Moore's law, the microprocessor, semiconductors, the history of computing. Now a lot of semiconductors are made in the Far East. I've been sharing on Week in Review, the Asiametry channel, but the history of the semiconductor and Intel, extremely important. So good stuff to know. Google, How Google Works, Eric Schmidt and Jonathan Rosenberg. So Eric Schmidt, one of the co-founders, and mostly written by Rosenberg, but had open talks with the founders of Google's insider perspective on the founding history of Google and the interplay of how Google works. Google definitely, YouTube. I'm on YouTube, owned by Google, but Google, relatively new company, powerful search engine, and important to know. I think I even have another book on Google. Here's Stephen Levy's Facebook, The Inside Story. History review of Facebook, kind of like a post. This book was written in the last few years that already has some of the decline and Facebook and the problems that they faced with the 2016 elections and various aspects. But this Stephen Levy had a lot of access to Mark Zuckerberg in one of the definitive books on Facebook. James Gleick, popular science author. I have his biography of Isaac Newton upstairs. Also the author of Chaos. I'm not sure I have Chaos. I know my dad has it. I remember reading James Gleick's Chaos as a kid. A Tinkle, thanks for tuning in. So here's just his book on information and this A History, a Theory of Flood. So it's not just on internet and social media. It's also a little bit on information theory, the mathematics, Shannon von Neumann. So James Gleick, pretty well-known author. In the Googleplex, How Google Trains, Works, and Shapes Our Life by Stephen Levy, author of Hacked. Also, insider's view of Google, the importance of Google in relation to the larger tech industry. So, here's some basic books on the history of computers and the main companies in the West Silicon Valley that dominate our computer business today. So, put these back on the shelf. Okay, so these next books are pretty interesting. And the next section of books are basically generic history of science, technology, engineering. I had my physics and mathematics section. So these books are more related to manufacture and engineering than science in general. I might even move this to with my physics books. This book is I actually read this book when I was in Stony Brook or in New York, like over 15 years ago. Good basic book, great feuds in science, 10 of the liveliest disputes ever. And I read this earlier. It has Pope Urban the Eighth versus Galileo, Wallace versus Hobbes, Squaring the Circle, Newton versus Leibniz, Voltaire and Needham, Darwin and Soapy Sam, Lord Kelvin in Geology, Cope versus Marsh on fossils, Wegener versus everybody on continental drift, and Johannesson versus the Leakeys on paleontology, and Derek Friedman versus Margaret Mead, nature versus nurture. So, kind of basic stuff on, getting a feel, like multiple truth hypothesis, precursor to feuds in science where you have alternative theories of how to understand things. And, so decent history, one of the earlier books that I read when I was, still in university. Just this one my dad also gave me recently, has a lot of pictures. Actually, I have a whole bunch of books like these that I'm not going to show today. They're all over the place. Future Proof, The Greatest Gadgets and Gizmos Ever Imagined, and by Nick Sagan, and just a history of various gadgets, technology, kind of like a single page or two on the history, who invented them, why they're important, how they work. So I like these books. Um, so industrial revolutionaries, the making of the modern world, 1776 to 1914. Obviously, the Industrial Revolution, mostly England and America, um, through Henry Ford, the cotton gin, um, steel mass manufacturer, Carnegie, very important things for the making of the modern world, the Industrial Revolution. And so this focuses on the names and personality behind um, the Industrial Revolution. Gavin Wayman. Here also, I like these books. I have a whole bunch of books like this. I've read a whole bunch online also. No, Tinkle, just add those 10 things that I read out. And it's not like a comprehensive history of science views, it's just focusing on 10 science views, not even necessarily the biggest science views, just that the author chose to include. So, Duvid, if I was a real author, I maybe even could write a better 10 great views of science. It's not necessarily like an exceptional book. It's just an early book that I read on the subject. So conceptually, maybe Duvey could even write a better version of this type book. So David Lindbergh, The Beginnings of Western Science, of the European scientific tradition in philosophical, religious, and institutional consciousness prehistory to 1450 AD. And, Church of Entropy, Week in Review, and my writing, I hope to go more in depth into specific topics. Right now I'm researching, just dualism, metaphysics, panpsychism, but there's a whole bunch of topics, just to, call like metaphysics, the philosophy of science, and the Greek precursors. Hey, Judas, thanks for tuning in. God bless. Another one, here's a Dover book, A History of Mechanical Inventions from Ancient Times to the 1800s, basically the Industrial Revolution. But I really kind of enjoy these books. I have quite a few on these long form history of invention in science or philosophy of all sorts, but specifically the history of science or inventions. Here's another interesting, how we got to now 6 innovations that made the modern world, by Stephen Johnson, and forget what his innovations were: glass, cold, sound, clean, time, and light. So he more has scientific categories than specific innovations. Cathedral, forge, and water wheel, technology inventions of the Middle Ages, by Francis Guise. So you see the main innovations of the Middle Ages: the Gothic cathedral, the forge, and the water wheel. But history of inventions, technologies in the Middle Ages. There was some scientific progress. Here, engineering and history. Multiple authors: Kirby, Withington, Darling, and Kilgore. And this has more broader subjects like food production of ancient times, the beginning of urbanizations, Greek science, power, modern science, steam engine, electricity, automation. Another one, short history of technology. These are all Dover books, from the earliest times to 1900 AD. It's another long form history of technology, Dover, large book. And I Invented the Modern Age, The Rise of Henry Ford. So biography of Henry Ford, focusing more on his industrial manufacturing accomplishments. AKL, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that. And Scientific America's Inventions and Discoveries, all the milestones and ingenuity from the discovery of fire to the invention of the microwave oven. I think this is also kind of like a page or two on a whole bunch of various topics. So I really enjoy, those type literature. I have on my computer. I'm always in the middle of, these type books, and it's somewhat like, just like trivial to, try to understand. I mean, try to memorize all this stuff, thousands of years of history, who made what, when they made it, how they made it. Pieces of information around around the inventions. So here is my biology and some geology. So some of these are more complicated books. Some are more simple history. Some are actually pretty complicated. So here, Paul Davies and Niels Heinrich Gregson, Information, the Nature of Reality. Looking at information as the basic building block of science. How do we define information? Information as it relates to matter, the universe, minds, genetics, philosophy. So, pretty interesting. This is actually Martin Nowick from Harvard. Jeffrey Epstein's scientist, the head of department at Harvard that was funded by Jeffrey Epstein. Super cooperators, altruism, evolution, and why we need each other to succeed. And I actually bought this book because it was Martin Nowick out of Harvard related to Jeffrey Epstein. I was a little curious, what he had to say, but interesting on, the evolution of altruism and cooperation. Here's JF, Jean-Francois Greppi's The Revolutionary Phenotype, and I had him interview on my channel, and went over a little bit of Jean-Francois Greppi's theory on the revolutionary phenotype, the taking over of RNA from DNA, and similar to his thoughts on the future of computer designed genetics, where computer artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms will control possibly genetic modifications, and the warnings about that, but also the history of his theory of the creation of life and the emergence of RNA from DNA. Here, David Brooks and Wiley, Evolution is Entropy Toward a Unified Theory of Biology. So, interesting, the concept of entropy. And if you note in evolution that errors in replication are referred to as entropy. So this tries to scientifically reduce evolution to as a process of entropy. Also entropy is an information theory, the other book of Davies and Gregson on information and the nature of reality. But there is a decent amount of, some of this is actually This is University of Chicago Press on evolution as entropy. Brinster, the precarious human role in a mechanistic universe, the enigmas and stigmas of imaginative thought in an era of understanding. So this has some physics in it, but also talks about your evolution and the mind, globalism. It's kind of all over the place. But interesting role, kind of like mind and information in the evolution of the universe. I think I actually have another 2 copies. I bought one for myself, and then my dad recently gave me his copy, and I put it up for sale because I had 2 of them. Here's a Cambridge From Matter to Life, Information and Causality. So I actually have quite a few books about information theory in relation to biology, genetics, evolution, and its complication. And it was a topic that interests me. Like, I guess I was talking with Jean-Francois Greppi on his show a few times, and Church of Entropy, talking about entropy and kind of arguing against evolution and the nature, like what's the mechanism behind evolution. And so this concept of information and the main purpose of DNA and genetics is to convey information, and also the nature of information in generally contained in matter. Also related to theology, that another topic I hope to look into more. Okay, yeah, thanks for the feedback, Superman. Appreciate some positive feedback. Theology meaning like the purpose, and emergentism. We've been talking about a week in review. That's a concept in mathematics and information, that things could have a purpose that isn't determined by something spiritual, but is like an emergent quality of mathematics in general. This one, Genes in Conflict, the Biology of Selfish Genetic Elements. And this is actually a pretty interesting book, and it went over a few variations of where genes compete against each other in sense, like, okay, it's not necessarily where we just have one genome that codes for who we are, and there's understandings in biology where the cell wages war against itself, or even within a given RNA or DNA larger mechanism of you would call genes in conflict, and coding for different things, epigenetics, and various topics. I think I had this with my other books on politics. I put with my science, race and human evolution. Or maybe my dad recently gave me this book by Wolpoff and Kaspari. I think they were even at University of Michigan, or one of them. Kaspari is University of Michigan. So just talking about what's race in terms of evolution and biology. Here's kind of random. I didn't have anywhere to put this. I bought this kind of for my dad to understand my dad's work, or just psychology in general. In fact, I think I'm going to put this with my psychology. The medical interview, the 3-function approach. Just talk about how do you talk to your patient. I'm actually going to move that with my psychology. Nicholas Lane, Life Ascending, the Great Inventions of Evolution. And here it means not of evolutionary scientists, but the proclaimed inventions of evolution herself, like DNA, photosynthesis, the complex cell, sex, movement, sight, hot blood, consciousness, death. You're just discussing how these things evolved, why they evolved. Fritjof Capra, The Web of Life, a new scientific understanding of living systems, more a systems view of blocks of life, kind of related to theology, using new mathematical language of complexity theory, information theory to understand biological systems. Here, The Science of Evolution, The Myth of Creationism, Knowing What's Real and Why It Matters. And this is more kind of like an anti-creationism book. But little interesting. I've read online some of the opposite books, but Duvid used to enjoy arguing against evolution. I haven't done it for a while, but so I bought that book. This one was designed for arguing against creationism. Why Does the World Exist? By Jim Holt, an existential detective story on metaphysical mystery of existence. And actually, someone on Luke Ford, even before I was talking with Church of Entropy, recommended this book, and I read it. Max Tegmark, Our Mathematical Universe, My Quest for the Ultimate Nature of Reality. Tegmark is one of the multiverse proponents. He's actually a critic of Hameroff and Penrose. But you're talking about our mathematical universe. This isn't too much on the multiverse, but more on the nature of mathematics and information in our universe and cosmology. And The Story of Earth, Robert Hazen. So he has a great teaching company course that hopefully after I'm done with this, I'll pop it up now just to remind myself I can go over teaching company courses. But I listened to his course on the teaching company, and saw he had an affiliated book of more like a history of geology, but also includes the rise of life and like the long form of the history of the world from the mainstream scientific perspective. Okay, so pounding through these pretty quick. Yeah, quite a bit of snow outside. It's already snowed like 3-4 inches. It's supposed to snow 6 to 8 inches today. So after I'm done streaming, Duvid will be shoveling. Okay, so here are more books directly on manufacture, not the manufacturing and invention history, but the manufacturing process. This was nicely bound. So I actually have like thousands of pamphlets like these from engineering shows. This is something they handed out from R&W, a German company, on safety and overload coupling, which is more an industrial design book of how components that they actually design work. But it was kind of bound as a book, so I put it with my engineering books. But I have thousands of pamphlets from engineering conferences that show mechanical devices, and they're more distribution materials for hopefully for them for sales for to promote their products than educational material. Though sometimes they hand out educational material. This was a pretty good book, Invention by Design: How Engineers Get from Thought to Thing. Henry Petrosky, also the author of The Evolution of Useful Things, Harvard University Press. But just insights into the Invention design process. This book they actually handed out. A company was handing these out for free at a manufacturing conference from the Alliance for American Manufacturing, Remaking America, and it's edited. It's collected articles about manufacturing and what's needed for America, to be competitive in the manufacturing process, Remaking America, by the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Here's a Tashkent book, Industrial Design A to Z, that is more like dictionary engine, encyclopedia of industrial design concepts. This is a really good book. So this is by University of Michigan. It's a Wiley book, but it's by University of Michigan professor who's actually Israeli, Yoram Karen, who I met. I didn't take his class. And Global Manufacturer Revolution, Product Process, Business Integration, and Reconfigurable Systems. And this book talks about the revolution in engineering process of reconfigurability from the old period of the industrial line, the Fordian manufacturing process, to the advancement of reconfigurability, to having an industrial line that doesn't just produce the same part, or like the Model T that had a few different colors, but actually being reconfigurable, and the different elements of manufacture. And so this is actually a textbook. I have it autographed. The best wishes, Yoram Hakran, autographed to Duvid. So he actually won some sort of prize at University of Michigan, and I went to his lecture. And this is a really good book. It's a textbook for mechanical engineering, and talking about globalism, global manufacturing processes, invention, mass production, customization, and reconfigurability. So reconfigurability is an extremely important concept. He also talks a little bit IT-based models, business models, but reconfigurability is an extremely important concept for industrial engineering. So this is an MIT book. I actually took his course. Yossi Sheffi, another Israeli, and Iwakaka, thanks for tuning in. So Logistical Clusters, Delivering Value and Driving Growth by Yossi Sheffi, and this is related to supply chains, logistics, and it was part of a course on logistics I took on edX on MIT. So, logistics also extremely important part of industrial manufacture engineering, and pretty interesting topic in general. Now with global manufacture, logistical clusters, delivering value and driving growth by Yossi Sheffi. And this is also a pretty famous book. Factory Physics for Managers, How Leaders Improve Performance in Post-Lean Six Sigma World by Pound Spearman. So it's not just like Six Sigma and like basic like lean. I actually took all these courses on edX about lean manufacturing, improving the the actual physics, a little bit of mathematics for manufacture. And this is a pretty well-known McGraw-Hill popular manufacturing book. Here, so I actually have two of these books. So Duvid has been, I have some of these on my, I've have pictures on Facebook from the very first one I went to, but I have videos of the last year of the Siemens conference every year at Ford Field. Yeah, well, Kaka, I'm just talking about books today. You can join my Discord or something if you want to talk personally. I'm just going to focus on the topic at hand today of science. So, Werner von Siemens, inventor and international entrepreneurial. And so I have two books of the history here. Both of these are by William Feldenkirchen. So here's Siemens 1918 to 1945, and Werner von Siemens, the founder of Siemens, which now is like a family dynasty, billionaires, one of the biggest manufacturing companies. God forbid, slave labor during the Holocaust, and building semi-electrical gates and components. But one of the most important companies in terms of modern electronics, manufacturing control systems, PLCs. Here in America, usually more expensive. Siemens has more expensive, higher quality product, but Siemens was one of the major companies that created the electrical grid in Germany. Siemens manufactures literally millions of products, because a lot of them are devices that are slightly different from each other. So they're not, necessarily like millions of, thousands of product categories, but a lot of the product categories have slight variations. And I believe they actually have well over 1 million, maybe even millions of various products. And then Siemens also does control systems for, whole manufacturing facilities, SCADA for programmable logic circuits, and they host the free training seminar in Detroit every year at Ford Field. Not the last few years, even last year they didn't do because of COVID-19. This year should be in March, back the Siemens conference, and you check my YouTube channel. I've streamed it in the past, so I was curious about the history of the company. So I think this was written with some of the family archives of the Siemens family themselves. And this is just the history of Siemens to 1945, let alone to Siemens, one of the largest companies in the world today. Okay, so here is a field I almost worked in. I had training on 3D printing. So here, fabricated the new world of 3D printing, the promise and pearl of machine that can make almost anything, by Lipson and Kerman. Pretty good overview on 3D printing. Here's more a simpler Budman and Rotolo, the book of 3D printing, more simple introduction. And here, O'Reilly getting started with MakerBot, Pettis, France, and Schegel. So for a while, Duvid was training on 3D printing machines. I mentioned Tech Shop in previous streams. Duvid was a member, and I don't own a 3D printer. I've considered buying a 3D printer. I'm not sure I really need it for anything that'd be a reasonable investment, but it's a technology I followed. I've taken courses on it. I almost got employment as a 3D printing salesman, and I streamed this last year the Science of Manufacturing Engineers on 3D printing. In fact, right now, the SME conference that's focusing on women is focusing specifically on 3D printing. So here, Karl Popper, The Laws of Scientific Discovery. Good book, important book. Stay tuned for more, Duvid in writing and streaming on, the history of science and metaphysics. So this is a famous, Karl Popper, The Logic of Scientific Discovery. My dad actually has, I don't know, the complete, like half the collection of these little MIT Press Essential Knowledge series. So here's Kelleher on deep learning. And it's kind of like the introduction. It's already 250 pages. My dad also has almost a complete collection of the very short introduction. But for a while, my dad was getting these regularly. The MIT Press Essential Knowledge series on deep learning. He probably has like 60, 70 of them. But this one just on deep learning. Good introduction. And here, Gary Kasparov, Chess, Deep Thinking, where machine intelligence ends and human creativity begins. So Gary Kasparov, obviously former world chess champion, pivoted to social commentary. He's been a big critic of Putin, politics. Russian dissident, now living in America, still active in the chess community. But one of his main gigs is speaking about the rise of computers. And, Gary Kasparov definitely has a place in that history as being the world chess champion who was defeated by Deep Blue and, was one of the demonstrations in the history books for the rise of the machine when Gary Kasparov was defeated by the machine. Okay, might be a relatively quick one today. So here's the rest of my books that I had here. They're kind of just random. I got this because I go to the foam conference every year. Universal Foam, from Cappuccino to the Cosmos. So just a basic book. Sidney Perkowitz on foam. What is foam? Why is it important? And in Michigan, you have the yearly foam conference that is largely here because of auto manufacturer and wanting to lightweight the automobile so it uses less fuel. And one of those is by using foam derivatives. Here's Capital Moves, RCA's 70-year quest for cheap labor. So maybe I should have put this with my internet communications. Obviously RCA, one of the biggest makers of televisions and electric devices, but this one's specifically about their globalization related to cheap labor, switching manufacturing to the Far East, and globalism. The Secret Life of Color by Cassia St. Clair. Just a little overview on color. What is it? This one was kind of interesting. The Box, How the Shipping Container Made the World Smaller and the World Economy Bigger, by Mark Levinson. Like global manufacture, logistics, and everywhere the shipping containers all over the place. So a nice little history and overview of the shipping container. Here, I think they were handing this out at University of Michigan. Interesting book, At the Helm, A Laboratory Navigator, by Kathy Barker. This talks about scientific research, university research. What does it mean to be a researcher, like a laboratory writing scientific papers? Another similar, Opportunities in Engineering Careers, by Nicola Basla. I'm not even sure when I got this at university, just like an overview of the type of careers you could get into engineering. This one they handed out at a recent engineering conference. I read through it. Mediocre. The Heart of Science, Engineering, Fine Print, about a woman rising in engineering, and also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, like insight about the engineering from lockdown. And my last one, Technologies of Freedom. So that's kind of like a history of internet, mass communication, media in relationship to freedom, individual rights, or the role governance and revolution, the role technology plays. So I guess that was relatively quick. Okay, so that's all my books this week. Next week will be a little bit longer, so why don't I do a review of The Teaching Company? And like, I do constantly read books on the subject. In the last few years, I have switched to bootleg books, or my father has a huge library, or reading dissertations and various things online. So I've hardly bought books in the last few years. And also, selling books. See that books are somewhat of a bad investment. That books kind of go down in value pretty quickly. They don't retain their value, and but I do listen. Me and my father have almost the complete collection, over 600 Teaching Company courses, and I have the subscription, and I'm constantly listening to Teaching Company courses. Hey, Reiner, thanks for tuning in again. And a lot of my generic knowledge comes from the Teaching Company. I listen to most of these in 2-speed. When we buy them on sale. These prices are Teaching Company. All the courses go on sale at least once, 1 month a year, for like at least 70% off. So, if you do want them, usually try to get them on sale. So you can see all sorts of courses: Essential Scientific Concepts, Field Guide to Planets, New History of Life, Visual Guide to the Universe, the Albert Einstein physicist, philosopher, and humanist, Introduction to Infectious Diseases, Anthropology and the Study of Humanity, Being Human, Life Lessons from the Frontier of Science, Big Data, How Data Analytics is Transforming the World, Big History, The Big Bang, Life on Earth, and the Rise of Humanity. All of these are interesting courses. Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, that's a bigger course, like 48 lectures. Biological Anthropology, Biology of Human Behavior, Neurological Origins of Individuality, just basic biology course. Black Holes Explained, Black Holes, Ties, Curved Space-Time, and Understanding Gravity, Boosting Your Emotional Intelligence, Brain Myths Explored, Lessons from Neuroscience, Change in Motion, Calculus Made Clear, Changing Body Composition Through Diet and Exercise, Chaos, Chemistry in Your Universe, Chemistry 2nd Edition, Cognitive Behavior Therapy, Techniques for Retraining Your Brain, Consciousness and Its Implication, Cosmology, the History and Nature of Our Universe, Dark Matter, Dark Energy, the Dark Side of Our Universe, Sean Carroll. So Sean Carroll, popular YouTuber, also has a course of the Teaching Company. the Darwinian Revolution, do-it-yourself engineering. All these Restler courses are pretty interesting. Your West Point engineer. This was the very first teaching company course that I got. I got as a present for my father, not knowing that my father already had quite a few teaching course companies like 10 years ago, maybe even more, like 15 years ago. Doctors, the History of Scientific Medicine revealed through biography. And it was 12 courses talking about medical history through biography. Earth at a Crossroads, understanding the ecology of a changing planet, Earth's changing climate, Einstein's relativity and the quantum revolution, modern physicists for non-scientists, Einstein's legacy, modern physics all around you, electrical engineering for everybody, epic engineering failures and the lessons they teach. There was a new one the last few months. Another Restler one, everyday engineering, understanding the marvels of daily life, examining the big questions of time, experiencing Hubble, exploring the Milky Way. Another one, experiencing Hubble, understanding the greatest images on Earth. A lot of these courses are DVDs and have really good images. So, some of these I just have on CD, or I listen to on my phone while I'm driving, so I don't watch many of them. Some of these, like years ago, I used to actually watch on DVD, and they have really good images, or the college, designed to somewhat be like college courses online, except you don't really do any homework or assignments or read along. You just watch the videos. But as I say, most of my general knowledge on topics comes from the teaching courses. Every day I listen to, a few lectures, like they say in their advertisement. Just listen to 15, 30 minutes a day and you'll finish the longest courses in a matter of weeks. And many days I listen to a few hours. Like today, I was doing some work indexing my parents' library today. I listened to about 2 hours of teaching company courses in 2-speed, and just finished another course today. The most recent course on assessing America's security threats with General McMaster's, and so like a lot of the professors and teachers on the teaching company are big names. Explaining social deviance, extreme offenders, psychological insight. Recently, they've had a lot of crime. Wodarian bought the teaching company, so they went a little more for popular stuff that people care about than academic. Food science and the human body, forensic history, crimes, frauds, and scandals. I'm skipping the economic ones. I don't know why they have the economic ones together with science, but yeah, it did the business ones. And foundations of organic chemistry, fundamentals of sustainable living, great heroes and discoveries of astronomy, great ideas of classical physics, Stephen Pollock, great ideas of psychology, great scientific ideas that changed the world. These were also some of the very first ones I listened to. History of Science, Antiquity to 1700, and History of Science 1700 to 1900. And they also have Science in the 20th Century. And I was actually listening to these when I was still a student at University of Michigan. So Duvid has been listening to the teaching company for 15 years now. So I'm just going through this. I listened to 13, 14 years ago when I was a student at University of Michigan, commuting back and forth and with CDs in the car. So, but these were good courses. I remember, these History of Science, how digital technology shapes us, how ideas spread, how science shapes science fiction, how we learn, how we move, how we decide, how the earth works, how to program, impossible physics beyond the edge. Benjamin Schumacher hasn't made a course for the teaching company in a while, but he had made quite a few teaching company courses. Introduction to Astrophysics, Introduction to Machine Learning, Introduction to Nanotechnology, Paleontology, Psychology. Here was Robert Hazen, who I'd mentioned had the book on the history of Earth, here on The Joy of Science. Language and Society, What Your Speech Says About You, John McWhorter. Next week, I'm going to do my linguistics books. John McWhorter is a popular teaching company professor, learning Java programming, life in our universe, life in the world's ocean, major transitions and evolution. It's important, evolution. This 24 half-hour lectures talking about the transitions in evolution, one of the big topics in evolution debates. Medical school for everybody, emergency medicine, and grand rounds cases, and pediatric grand rounds. Memory in the human lifespans, meteorology and introduction to the wonders of weather. These are more recent. Scientific American, Mind-Blowing Science, Season 1 and 2, just short tidbits on explaining small phenomenon. Mind-Body Medicine, The Science of Optimal Health. Teaching company had a partnership with the Mayo Clinic. My dad actually recently got training and certification with the Mayo Clinic. Music in the Brain. I think I bought his book. I show that next week. I took his course, and he'd written a book also. My Favorite Universe, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Another one by Sean Carroll, Mysteries of Modern Physics, Time, Mysteries of the Modern Microscopic World, Nature on Earth, an Introduction to Geology. These ones were pretty good. I remember, I know a decent amount about a lot of topics that I haven't really read that much. I never took a course on. But because I listened to basically all of the teaching company, Neuroscience of Everyday Life, I put this aside to listen to again recently. New Frontiersmen, Modern Perspectives on the Solar System, Nuclear Physics Explained, Nutrition Made Clear, Oceanography, Exploring Earth's Spinal Wilderness, Optimizing Brain Fitness, Origins of Life, Robert Hazen. That's the book that I was mentioning that goes along with this course. Origins of the Human Mind, Our Night Sky on Astronomy, Outsmart Yourself, Brain-Based Strategies for the Better You, Particle Physics for Non-Physicists, A Tour of the Microcosmos, Passions, Philosophy, and the Intelligence of Emotion, this Anthropology, People and Cultures of the World, Philosophy of Mind, Brains, Consciousness, and Thinking Machines. Patrick Grimm's actually Stony Brook University. Philosophy of Science, Physics in Our Universe, How It All Works, Physics in Your Life, Physics of History, talking about how physics is used to understand history, like carbon dating and other aspects, physiology and fitness, plant science and introduction to botany, practical geology, interesting, especially my parents are mineral collectors and caves and stuff like that, psychology of human behavior, quantum mechanics, the physics of the microscopic world, radio astronomy, observing the invisible universe, raising emotionally and socially healthy kids, redefining reality, the intellectual implications of modern science. Stephen Gimbel, the author of Jewish Einstein, and the recent course on humor. And I met Stephen Gimbel. He came to Temple Bethel in the last few years. I have a selfie with him. Rediscovering the Age of Dinosaurs, a new course. I haven't listened to that one yet. Rise of Humans, Great Scientific Debates. Robotics, Roots of Human Behavior. Science Wars, What Scientists Know and How They Know It. Science in the 20th Century, a Social Intellectual Survey. Science of Self. Scientific Secrets of Raising Kids Who Thrive. Scientific Secrets for a Powerful Memory. Secrets of Sleep Science, From Dreams to Disorders. Sensation Perception and the Aging Process. Shocking Psychological Studies and the Lessons They Teach. Skepticism 101, How to Think Like a Scientist by Michael Shermer, popular, I think he's also a popular YouTuber. Skywatching, Seeing the Understanding of the Cosmic Wonders. Solving for Zero. This was Bill Gates' one on environmentalism and the UN's social SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Solving for Zero, the Search for Climate Innovation. Stress in Your Brain. Superstring Theory, the DNA of Reality. Survival Mentality, the Psychology of Staying Alive. Synthetic Biology, Life's Extraordinary New World, The Addictive Brain, The Aging Brain, The Big Bang and Beyond, Exploring Our Early Universe, The Botanist's Eye, Identifying Plants Around You, The Evidence for Modern Physics, How We Know What We Know. Pretty interesting. The Great Questions of Philosophy and Physics, also Stephen Gimbel. The Hidden Factory, Why Thinking Differently is Your Greatest Asset, Scott Page of University of Michigan. I showed his book the other day on difference. So it said he has got a course on economics, behavioral economics, and his book on how diversity benefits business. But this is talking about thinking differently. The Higgs Boson and Beyond, Sean Carroll. The Human Body, How We Fail, How We Heal. Inexplicable Universe, Unsolved Mystery. The Intelligent Brain, Richard Heyer, who was recently on Lex Friedman, IQ expert. This very good course, Intelligent Brain, Richard Heyer, on what we know about intelligence, the learning brain. I think Thad Polk is at University of Michigan. He's got a few. The Life and Death of Stars, The Mayo Clinic Guide to Pain Relief, The Nature of Matter, Understanding the Physical World, The Origin and Evolution of Earth, From the Big Bang to the Future of Human Existence, also another Robert Hazen. The Philosopher's Toolkit, How to Be the Most Rational Person in Any Room, another Patrick Grimm from Stony Brook. The Psychology of Performance, How to Be Your Best in Life. I'm going to be talking more about peak and the science of expertise, hopefully in the near future. The Remarkable Science of Ancient Astronomy. This was actually very interesting also, looking at like the pyramids and ancient, what the ancients knew about astronomy. Talks about the Hebrew calendar, the Muslim calendar. I enjoyed this one immensely, The Remarkable Science of Ancient Astronomy. The Science of Energy, Resources of Power Explained. The Science of Extreme Weather. The Science of Flight. The Science of Information, From Language to Black Holes. The Science of Integrated Medicine. I think that's also Mayo Clinic. The Science of Mindfulness, Research-Based Path to Well-Being. The Science of Natural Healing. Scientific Wonder of Birds. Search for Exoplanets, What Astronomers Know. Spiritual Brain, Science and Religious Experience. The Surveillance State, Big Data, Freedom, and You. The Theory of Everything, The Quest to Explain All Reality. The World's Greatest Geological Wonders, 36 Spectacular Sites. This one, DVD, definitely watching DVD. Spectacular Geological Wonders. World Tour. Theories of Human Development, Theories of Evolution, A History of Controversy. I gained a lot out of this one. I listened to this while I was still in University of Michigan, like over 10 years ago. Theory of Evolution, A History of Controversy. Thermodynamics, 4 Laws That Move the Universe. Thinking about cybersecurity, From Cybercrime to Cyber Warfare. Trails of Evidence, How Forensic Science Works. Understanding Cognitive Biases. It's a recent course, just listened to this recently. Understanding Complexity, also Scott Page, University of Michigan. Understanding Cultural and Human Geography. Understanding Disorders of the Brain. Understanding Genetics, DNA, Genes, and their real-world application. Understanding Greek and Roman Technology, From Catapult to the Pantheon. Stephen Ressler, all those courses are really interesting. He does a lot of great demonstrations and building models. Hey, John, thanks for tuning in. Understanding Modern Electronics. Understanding Nonverbal Communication, also interesting course. Understanding Your Inner Genius. Understanding the Brain. Understanding the Human Body, an Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. I actually listened to that one when I was taking anatomy at University of Michigan. Understanding the Human Factor, Life and Its Impact. Understanding the Inventions That Changed the World. Understanding the Misconceptions of Science. Understanding the Mysteries of Human Behavior. Understanding the Periodic Table. I mentioned this one in Week in Review. Understanding the Quantum World. Understanding the Science of Tomorrow, Myth and Reality. Understanding the Secrets of Human Perception. Understanding the Universe, an Introduction to Astronomy. Understanding the World's Greatest Structures, Science and Innovation from Antiquity to Modernity, another Stephen Ressler. Unlocking the Hidden History of DNA. what Darwin didn't know, the modern science of evolution, what Einstein got wrong, what science knows about cancer, why insects matter, Earth's most essential species, why you are who you are, investigations into human personality, wonders of national parks, the geology of North America, um, new Wonderium insights, promise and perils of technology, your best brain, your deceptive mind, a scientific guide to critical thinking skills, and zoology, understanding the animal world. So, say Duvid is constantly listening to the teaching company. Um, the majority of what Duvid knows about general wisdom and topics comes from the teaching company. Like I said, like driving and while I'm doing work in the background, I always listen to the teaching company. And my general knowledge on most subjects come from the teaching company. And you know, said I basically listen to all of them. I have a subscription. In fact, you know, me and my dad own most of all of them. Have the hard copy CDs and DVDs. I listen to a lot of them in 2-speed. They come out with like 3 a month, and you know, definitely a big fan of education and you know, general information about things. You know, one of the best ways to get that is through the teaching company. So I think I might leave this one short this week. Um, you know, hopefully, John, you know, we'll talk again next week, Monday. We'll see if Mob Talk has a future to it, or if you want to try something else, or maybe, you know, we did like 10 shows and we'll put a hiatus on it. So we'll talk about that again next Monday. I haven't been streaming with Charles Moskowitz for a while. Not sure what's going on with that. He switched to 3. Um, you know, unfortunately, it's not really growing his show, and he didn't really take any of my recommendations about how to make it grow. And like it's off YouTube, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with that. He hasn't reached out to me. You know, Week in Review still going strong. Hopefully, the Ask the Rabbi, we're going to keep on going strong with that. And Saturday night, I'm going to do the history of the yeshiva movement. And I have a whole bunch of other Ask the Rabbis um, that I would like to do in the near future. I have 2 more weeks of tour my library scheduled. Next week, psychology, which will be a big one. I got like 5 shelves for next week. Like over 150 books. It'll definitely be over 2 hours, and you know, big subject. And then the week after, I have scheduled Michigan and Detroit books, where I just have 1 shelf. They'll probably be shorter. And then I think after that, I'm going to do Gurdjieff and general spiritual books, and I'll do a little besides just showing my books. I'm going to do a little deep dive into Gurdjieff and the Fourth Wave, and J.G. Bennett and some of their teachings. And so that's the next 3 weeks, and then hopefully after that, I will find something else to stream about. Either I will continue with Tour My Library, where I will go more in depth into single books instead of just going through book after book, all the books on my shelf. I will do in-depth analysis on topics or single books, or soon I want to go topically. Hopefully I'm going to start producing my own writing, and I plan to do streams on various topics related to the multiple truth hypothesis, most notably dualism, panpsychism, the scientific revolution, metaphysics, and some interesting topics. Then also the science of expertise. I'm going to do something on humor, the science of humor, the philosophy of humor, and I have still the science of expertise. And so hopefully it'll be a payoff that I didn't stream on my channel for a while, so I got back into it with the Tour of My Library series. I've now been doing this a few months, and I've almost wrapped up. Thank God Duvet has a large library, so I was able to get a good like 15 shows of Tour of My Library in, and hopefully I'll get back to doing regular Ask the Rabbis, maybe not every week, but every other week or so. And so I appreciate everyone tuning in, people in the chat, Lauren, Reiner, Wakaka, Tinkle, Superman, KL, John, appreciate everybody being here. Any questions or comments, you can put it in the comments afterwards. Join my Discord if you want to talk more. And I guess that's it. So I'm going to sign off. Wish everyone a good night, and hopefully we'll see you after Sabbath for another Ask the Rabbi. So God bless. Signing off. Have a great night.